Textiles and Apparel, Gail. We'll be finding out a lot more about her experiences as an appointee of President Barack Obama and also as a consultant. Gail, good evening and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much
Good
for
to have
having
you.
me. Thank you.
Great. So you worked as an appointee to President Barack Obama on trade, on textiles and apparel. What were you doing?
Textiles and Apparel office handles all trade negotiations for that sector, as well as looking at some of our preference programs and other trade programs, making sure they're enforced, and then, of course, actually negotiating the free trade agreements, preference programs, and bilateral agreements going forward, looking at our WTO commitments in that sector, and so forth.
And how long did you work there?
So I was there for 6 years. I just left in October. As you know, the United States was busy with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, agreement for a number of years, and I had promised to stay on until that was complete. We basically completed that in October, so I was in the administration for a little over 6 years, and now it's time to, I've done, I think, everything I really came to Washington to do, I accomplished, and so you don't get, I better get out while I could.
And how would you say the experience has been?
The experience was the most meaningful and the most frustrating at the same time. Obviously, having come from the private sector before, where you have a lot more control over how things move and how things get done, can make it a little frustrating. On the other hand, particularly when you're working in my segment, when you work in textiles and apparel, which can provide so many jobs for so many people and have such meaningful access to the U.S. market. I mean, the U.S. is the single largest importer of apparel goods in the world. We basically buy 25% of the world's apparel. So the effect that that can have in terms of job creation and making sure that those jobs are meaningful jobs, healthy jobs, safe jobs, decent paying jobs, can have some huge impact. And so it is one of the most rewarding and one of the most frustrating things to do.
How challenging has it been for you as a woman, and rising through the ranks?
Well, when I got to Saxon Textile in 1980, to say that it was a male-dominated world would be the understatement of the century. I could tell all the stories about, you know, being across the table at a meeting and having somebody look at, you know, a male subordinate and asking them the questions, ignoring me, or seeing me come in and ask me to make coffee. But I think every woman in business has those stories. I can tell you stories about getting off the plane in Korea and having the person hold up a sign that said, Mr. Strickler, and when I came over to talk to them and say, that's me, oh, no, because, and it makes you stronger, I guess. But it also makes you realize, to some degree, how far we still have to go, but how far we've come. I mean, in 1980, when I got to the industry, it was very unusual to see a woman that was going to rise to the top. Unfortunately, I think it's still too rare, but we've certainly made progress. And I think for a lot of the women out there in parts of the world that are developing this sector, it has huge opportunities.
Why that interest in the textiles industry?
So I have a family history. My grandmother actually, so my grandmother grew up, she was orphaned at the age of 16, and she was able to keep her family together, her brother and sister, by working in an apparel factory, sewing garments, sewing lingerie, all day long, and cleaning that factory at night. And so her history, her background, her knowledge was in textiles. And when she was able to save enough money, she and her husband, my grandfather, actually started a small textile company with the money she had saved working. And I came into what was a small family business and turned it into more of a integrated global company that created a variety of product and did business all over the world. And so that's how I actually.
And how well is that company doing today?
That company was sold in 2007 to a much larger conglomerate that it was able to incorporate it into an even greater global strategy.
Why was it sold?
Because the marketplace has changed rather dramatically, obviously, from what it was when I got into the business in 1980. And because we have such, it is such, the sourcing demands for textiles and apparel today are a global platform that needs to exist in multiple countries, multiple currencies, and a 24-hour time zone. And smaller companies are, I felt our company was better off being part of a much larger company that had access to inputs and production.
Where does Ghana place in the scheme of affairs?
So right now, Ghana is a pretty small player. I believe it was less than $20 million last year. But Ghana is one of the most respected democracies in Africa. And that means that from an investment perspective, there's huge opportunity for those that are taking a look at Africa and realizing that there is some long-term opportunities here to really look at Ghana. One of the things that I want to say that's different and that I'm really proud to have been part of in the Obama administration is even though the African Growth and Opportunity Act goes back to, more than 10 years, almost 15 years to 2000 originally. It was never renewed before for more than 5 years at a time. It was allowed to lapse several times or get very close to lapsing other times. In addition, the third-party fabric provision of AGOA was also, in many occasions, it wasn't re-upped until the last minute or sometimes retroactively. So while some people are quick to say that AGOA hasn't offered as much benefit as they were hoping, I feel that it's never had the opportunity to really get it right until now. This is the first time in this administration we have 10 full years that we know that it's in existence. We also have 10 full years that we know that third-party fabric will be available. When you look at the investment perspective for the industry, many of the more advanced products require the amortization of the costs in producing that to be taken over a considerable amount of time.
Ghana is hoping to increase its competitiveness within this.
So the things that are really important to this industry, I was so impressed through Ghana in some of the most rural areas on every 16 years of age at least was wearing a school uniform. That means they're getting the skills to really take on jobs throughout the country. You have a government some of the, if you look at what's been successful elsewhere. You have a great location, but your ports could use a lot more investment. So I think, and you need, what else do you need? You need a stable source and a stable cost on energy, and you need the availability of water. And you need water both for processing and for some of the productive capacity. So Ghana is developing. I know when I was there, they were meeting about energy costs and also water costs per cubic meter. Sorry. One of the things that needs to happen is they need to have a long-term goal of creating energy, a stable energy source, and one in which companies can anticipate what that cost is going to be. I remember when I was there a few months back, they were planning on a big increase in the cost of both energy and water, literally overnight. That's not going to help investment, but hopefully that was to get it on the right course. But
now you sound like a motivational speaker.
Oh, sorry.
You said we should take it out someday. Thank you very much. Gail Strickler is former U.S. Trade Representative for Textile and Apparel. She was our movie segment tonight on Business Focus on TV3. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.